So, let's talk about Whitby Abbey. I got onto the Dracula daily bandwagon. And, well, ever since I've been interested in Dracula, in Bram Stoker, in the whole thing. Took some time to visit, virtually, Whitby Abbey, but also to read about its history. Whitby Abbey was built in 657 AD in North Yorkshire, which was of medieval Northumbrian kingdom, of King Oswy, or Oswiu, or Oswig. In medieval Old English, it's not known for its consistent pronunciation. It was built supposedly on the site of an ancient Roman settlement. It was called Stronishol or Stranchel or something like that. I looked up the pronunciation and there were like 4 different options. It was destroyed later on by Danish raids. What the fuck? And after William the Conqueror came into power, one of his soldiers refounded it. He was called Rainford. And so it carried on for a few centuries as a center of learning until Henry VIII, who did his whole dissolution of all monasteries for the church, and it was bought by the Cholmondeley family. I don't know if they used it for anything. It looked like they just sort of had it. They had the land, they built a house there, and the abbey was there, and it was used as a landmark by sailors. It fell into ruins. At some point, it was turned into a Grade 1 listed building, which means it is of exceptional interest, and it is now in the care of English heritage. But let's get back to the history. In 1914, during World War I, it was bombarded for 10 minutes by some lost German bombers who were trying to bomb something else. In 1885, a ship called the Demeter was seeking refuge from a storm, but it couldn't get into the harbour, and it ended up in a sandbar. The crew all got out, but they couldn't refloat the ship, and it was eventually shipwreck. It wasn't insured, so they just abandoned it, and it was broken up for parts. It was a great storm. So 5 years later, in 1890, when Bram Stoker visits the town, he hears of this story, of this great storm and of this ship. He also walks around Whitby Abbey, the graveyard of St. Mary's Church, and he visits the library, where he reads Principalities of Wallachia and Moldavia, where he learns about Vlad Tepes, and how he was called, well, his atrocities, and that he was called Dracula, which in their language meant son of the dragon, or devil. He gets inspiration from all of this, including some of the names in the graveyard, and later on he uses all of that to write Dracula. Whereas we know, Whitby Abbey plays a big part. In the novel, Mina Harker is interested in Whitby Abbey. She reads about it in the novel. She finds it all romantic, in the old sense, not in the current sense, although she probably found it romantic in modern times too. And it sort of feeds on itself. It's the interesting thing about Whitby Abbey, that it's so old that it's been in many books. One of the most famous now is Dracula, so people keep visiting it because of all of this sort of stacked history that it has. Old house, the banqueting hall, it's now used as a museum, not just for Dracula stuff, for the Danish raid, for the monastery, for everything that has happened in what is a fairly small area, but that packs a lot of history. So whenever I make it back to the UK, it is definitely a site I'm going to be visiting. But for now, we have to make do with Google Earth. I've been listening to Read Dracula, which is absolutely amazing. We've been doing the last voyage of the Demeter, because it's going chronologically. So the last voyage of the Demeter happens at the beginning of August. And the set building, I guess, that they've done to sound design is absolutely fantastic. And there's currently so many descriptions of Whitby Abbey, of Withby Harbour, and so on, that it makes me want to look it all up. The amazing thing of current technology is that you can visit it virtually. I can open up Google Earth and search, because Whitby Abbey is a very specific location that we have, unlike most of the journey to excavations, which is not as specific, So I can go to Whitby Abbey, I can go to Withby Harbour, and so on, and see where this horrible a storm happened, where Dracula summoned a storm to sort of hide his arrival into England, so he could hide like the disaster of the last voyage of the Demeter. London to Whitby. 8 hours. It takes 8 hours today. How long did it take back then? It's insane. And it's how long? It's 300 kilometers. Why the fuck does it take 8 hours? Bus via York, if it drives 4 hours. By train, the shortest one is 5 hours. King's Cross. You probably have to change a few times. That's fun. Whitby Jetty. That's not the jetty. That's really far. No, that's what I was looking for. Nice. Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, that's the stuff. Yeah, during storm. Oh, that's pretty. I'm guessing that they have like old boats and do reenactments. I mean, we do that here, and we have a lot less history to work with. I'm speaking, colonization history. Nice. That's fucking cool. And there you have the app, and that's the harbour. You see, it's a tiny ass entrance. Mm. Yeah, we go to Fisherman's Wife, car park, the beach, a gun battery. That's a fucking house of mouse there. Battery parade fair. So, is that all that's left of the battery? Like 2 cannons? Yeah, I'm not really seeing any more in the way of battery. It's in arms. Oh, it's a lovely place. No doubt I'm just not seeing the guns that they get rid of them all. It's just a name now. I do like the big sort of walls of rock that are there. It's cool. Oh, I wonder if the water was very cold. It seems like it would be cold. Thanks, dude. Memorial. Would be seafront. Yeah, that's what I'm interested in. Let's see the seafront. That's just a photo though. I can't walk by the seafront. That's a tragedy. Oh, look at that. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. See, you didn't have the opportunity to walk there at night. I'm gonna have to go there and do it myself. Club side on this, whatever, Whitby. It's a little bit over there to that, and then sort of off to the side of the harbour, looking over it. Someone left just sort of. I can see like a lock, and I can see flowers, and like people leave stuff. But is that? I know. Is that for a particular reason, or does each person have their reason? Because if you go to like near that, you'll see that sort of thing, but it usually means someone died there. So I'm not sure if that's like a Dracula thing, or people just leaving their mark, or what. And now I'm wondering, do people go there to jump? I'm gonna guess that there's been a few occasions of that. It's picturesque as fuck.